Hello, Virus Bulletin 2021. Welcome to our Fireside chat today, called Good Times, Bad Times. You know I've had my share. Resilience in today's ever-evolving cybersecurity landscape. Thank you for joining us today as part of the Cyber Threat Alliance's Threat Intelligence Practitioner Summit. I am lucky today to be joined by some amazing women in cybersecurity. We plan to use the song titles from some Rolling Stones songs to help guide our conversation. We hope to bring some levity to a serious topic that's in the forefront of so many people's minds daily. I am Kathi Whitbey, Threat Intelligence Program Manager for Unit 42 with Palo Alto Networks. I have been with Unit 42 for 6 years now and have worked with these ladies in various capacities over the years. Previous to Unit 42, I was a project manager for some large custom software applications for the US government. In my free time, I am also a volunteer emergency medical technician. Happy to be here today with these ladies and happy to be here for you guys. Selena, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm super stoked to be here as well. Honestly, I just love any conference talk that can get kicked off with a dance party. So my name is Selena Larson. I am the Senior Cyber Threat Intelligence Analyst at Proofpoint. Prior to that, I was an analyst over at Dragos, specializing in industrial control system cybersecurity. And before I actually came into cyber in the private sector, I was a journalist. So I was covering privacy and security and kind of a lot of these topics that we're going to be discussing today from a very human impact perspective. And Angie, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much. My name is Angie Wilson. I'm a senior PM manager in Microsoft Azure, and my group helps our Azure teams think about security and privacy as they're building out their services, not just after the fact. So I'm super excited to be here today to have a great discussion with these fine ladies. Jeannette, on to you.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm grateful to be here today with these great ladies. My name's Jeannette. I have been in the cybersecurity industry for over 25 years in a variety of roles at different companies, but today I am Chief Marketing and Recruitment Officer for the Cyber Threat Alliance. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get going. I'm gonna start us off with the Rolling Stones song title, Not Fade Away, especially as it applies to today's threat landscape and the cyber adversaries. You know, these are challenging times. There's no question that the threat landscape is dynamic and complex. With the ever-growing sophistication of threats and tactics, the adversary will not fade away anytime soon. Recently, I read an article by Cybersecurity Ventures, and they predicted that the global cybercrime damages will cost the world $6 trillion this year. And Checkpoint, which is one of CTA's charter members, noted that data breaches are up 119% from 2019. It's a hard problem we're fighting. Another CTA member, Sophos, recently reported that the average bill for rectifying a ransomware attack is $1.85 million, and that those that have paid the ransom, only around 9% actually get their encrypted data back. Now, on a personal note, I received a phone call last night from a girlfriend of mine whose partner is an attorney, and he had just been hit with a ransomware attack. And all his legal documents on his laptop were encrypted, and they were not backed up. Can you believe it? And the ransomware actor wants $10,000 to recover. And of course, there's no guarantee that he will get his data back. And we recommend anyway that you don't pay ransom anyway. So that's the advice I gave her. And we directed her to other resources, but it's a real problem and it's affecting people every day. So what can we do to help? Well, we need to be really more deliberate on building better partnerships, more specifically public-private partnerships. We can do more together. Overall, our industry collaboration has to improve. When we collaborate, we can better put that story together around the adversary and what they're doing and the tactics they're using. And that's going to help us create a more coordinated and robust response. So when working together across the whole global digital ecosystem, we can improve our cyber defense overall and resilience against the cybercrime.
No, Jeannette, that's really interesting that you mentioned your personal story, because I think a lot of us are hearing a lot more personal stories and people having this impact in our lives outside of the cybersecurity space For example, my sister, who lives in North Carolina, she's had her work impacted by ransomware, as well as her commute. She was unable to drive when the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack happened because she couldn't get gas and all the gas stations were out. So my sister, who is not in security or technology in any way, called me up and was kind of talking about this. And, we're kind of talking about this topic of like not fading away. If anything, they're sticking here and they're becoming even more prevalent and obvious to people outside of the security community, right? So the general public is being made ever more aware of certainly cybercrime, and in a lot of ways, APT state actors too. What I think is interesting and kind of changing in the cyber threat landscape as well is from a cyber criminal perspective, you see a lot of times cyber threat actors either collaborating or using one another for facilitating their activities, right? So you mentioned ransomware. You have ransomware as a service, malware as a service operators. You have initial access facilitators or brokers that are either sell access or obtain access to an environment, and then other ones will kind of piggyback on that to distribute their malware or ransomware. And so you have these kind of, cyber criminal ecosystem that is becoming more and more in our purview, and people are becoming a lot more aware of it. And the attacks and consequences, as you mentioned, both the Sophos research as well as some of the other public reporting is, it's becoming a lot more costly, and, it's impacting a lot more people. Kathi, did you have any thoughts on the not fading away?
Sure. I wanted to share just some more specific data points. I know that Selena already mentioned the Colonial Pipeline, and I'll hit on that again in just a second. But some things to consider as we're almost finished with another year, 2021. Supply chain attacks have become a major theme for this calendar year. So when you talk about your individual, your friends, your sister, things that have, people that have been affected that personally, when you think about some of these supply chain attacks, those types of things are affecting all of us, right? So, through one single attack, adversaries are impacting multiple industries at one time. So just in one swoop, they're able to take action on multiple industries that all of us deal with on a regular basis. So they're not just directing their attacks, not just the direct attack on the supply chain itself, but those relationships and dependencies that those supply chains have with other organizations. The pressure is totally on businesses now to get those operations back up and running faster than they've ever initially prepared for. So not preparing for an attack like what happened to the Colonial Pipeline, it affected so many different industries. And now our sisters and other people that we know that have nothing to do with cybersecurity are calling us, asking us questions of what can we do about this? How can we prevent this in the future? So, in specific, talking about the Colonial Pipeline, it caused significant disruption, not only to the energy sector, but also to transportation. So people couldn't get gas. Aviation, obviously, planes also need gasoline to be able to fly. Many manufacturing industry companies, and also the healthcare industry. So all of those things affect us on a daily basis, and the infrastructure costs were extraordinary for those businesses and industries, in addition to the $4.4 million that the Colonial Pipeline paid to get their information back and to be able to start their operations back up. So that's pretty significant. And I know Jeannette mentioned some of those numbers as well. Another one that was pretty significant this year was the JBSSA, which was the meatpacking industry. So that really affected the United States as well as Australia. And we're talking another $11 million they paid because of that ransomware attack. So not fade away. It doesn't appear as if it's fading away, but as we get smarter, I think we're going to be able to bring insight into these types of attacks, and hopefully begin to protect our customers and the industries across the board as we go further. Something I was talking to Jeannette about earlier today was another interesting fact was between May and June of this year, 2 well-known ransomware groups announced that they were suspending operations. So that's a win, right? We've got ransomware groups that are stepping down. They no longer want to operate. However, in the same period of time, more than those 2 that stopped operations actually started operations. So it is important that we do stay on top of it, because the threat landscape is not fading away. and the way we work is changing too, Selena.
Definitely. I mean, this has really been an unprecedented year. Last year was unprecedented. This year is also unprecedented. I don't know when we're going to be going back to precedented times, but certainly moving forward, we are kind of going to be keeping a lot of these behaviors and a lot of these the way that we work and the way that we interact with people. And due to the coronavirus, a lot of us have moved. The entire global workforce has really just moved to working from home. So that's changed the way that we work and interact and host conferences, for example, right? We all wish we could be on a stage chatting about this and having a dance party in person. But I think, the shift to remote work and the shift that appears to kind of have a lot of staying power, right? I mean, you have people that are saying, I don't want to go back to the office. So this has brought on a lot of new vulnerabilities as, the workers sort of left their confines of their work infrastructures. You have the potential for, BYOD, people are working on their personal laptops, their work laptops, going to the coffee shop, logging on to, different Wi-Fi networks and connecting in different ways. And there is an increase in vulnerabilities that have been identified, both ODA vulnerabilities as well as from some of the biggest network providers that are being hijacked by these adversaries that we were just talking about. Certainly ransomware is a huge one, but also state-backed actors, general cybercrime, what have you. So this shift in the way that we work, the shift in our behaviors and the tools that we're using has kind of opened up a lot of new doors for adversaries to keep their work under cover of the night. So as we kind of pivot into this the new song title, this new idea that we're kind of chatting about, the threat actors kind of, being out of sight, using these new holes and new vulnerabilities and new avenues of exploitation that have been opened up over the last year and a half. Can you sort of address some of the cyber risks? Like what do we as a panel kind of think are some of the cyber risks? What do we think remote workers can do to sort of better protect themselves, both under cover of the night as well as during the day when we're all supposed to be working? Jeannette, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks, Selena. You bring us some really good points. The number one thing that I tell everybody that isn't working in the cybersecurity industry is don't trust anything, right? Don't trust email, don't trust those texts. None of it's valid and it's likely going to cause problem. Hence my friend's partner who got that ransomware attack yesterday. But also back up your data and store a copy somewhere outside of your house. The fact that someone that's a really strong professional didn't have a backup of critical legal documents, that's a problem. And if he can't update or back up his data, then what about a common home user, who doesn't have the experience? I'm really happy to see that like banks and other applications are using multi-factor authentication now. That's really encouraging to see the growth in that. And also VPNs, use a trusted VPN, especially if you're traveling. And so there's just small things that add up to make a big difference in our life overall. And it's just getting the word out. Every one of us has friends that have been impacted and we have to help educate people. Like you mentioned, there was this mass exodus from the corporate world where you're protected by the corporate infrastructure and now you're not at home any longer. And you're exposed to many more vulnerabilities and the bad guys are exploiting them. And today, really the strength and the success of social engineering is beyond, right? They are good. The bad guys have gotten really, really good at fooling us and people can't tell the difference. I always like to do those phishing tests every now and then. And, it's not always easy for sure. And you know what, we just have this over reliance on technology. And that means that any exploitation is gonna be highly impactful to our life overall. We like the convenience that we have now with technology. There's some really cool stuff, but there's just a lot of risks. And I think one thing that I'd like to see is better investment in staffing and resources needed to ensure that as an industry overall, we're building more secure software in the foundation of our development of services and products. It's not going to hurt us to slow down releases until we've done a complete due diligence to ensure that the products are being secure. I keep an informal tracking sheet of patches that are released each month. And just one platform alone released nearly 600 patches. And that sheer volume,
Wow.
that's just unsustainable to stay on top of month over month. And that's just one platform. And you know what? That doesn't even include IoT devices, we love the convenience of IoT devices and all the cool things that have come to the market, but they are highly vulnerable. And does anybody even know how to patch them if they were exploited? Probably you'd have to just toss it and go buy a new one. It's a big problem, really. It's really easy for bad actors to stay under cover of the night. Angie, do you have any thoughts on this now?
I do. Actually, this speaks to privacy in a really big way. As we've all been working from home, how often are you working on sensitive project information, including personal information? And your kids will come in, or your spouse will come in. You're supposed to keep that data private and not allow others to see it. It's just your family, right? Who would they tell? But let me give you a scenario. Think of fictional Maddie. She's an HR director working from home. She's reviewing some compensation of very high-level execs at her company. And her spouse comes in. He happens to see their skip-level manager makes much more than Maddie does. He complains to his best friend, who then shares it. And now you have a potential incident. These are not really intentional breaches, but we always need to be aware of the privacy implications. And another scenario, and that's one that Jeannette talked about, is your home office gets hacked. This could be done by your neighbor next door, for heaven's sakes. Some mitigations you can put in place. You can use a privacy shield on your screen so that only you can see it and others cannot. And be sure you lock your screen when you step away, all those things that we did in the corporate environment, but now that we're working from home, we should keep those secure as well. And like Jeannette spoke about the VPN, use a VPN at home to make sure your connection is secure. I recently attended a really great security session where the speaker said, we need to stop blaming the user, especially since folks are working from home and are distracted. All of us are distracted. She also said complexity is the enemy of intelligent security. We need to look at how our users do their jobs and make it easier for them, especially now. And so the next song title we're going to talk about is Pretty Beat Up. With the growth in ransomware attacks, some ramifications from more advanced social engineering attacks, attacks on cloud infrastructure. We've already talked about the supply chain. Our privacy seemingly gone. We as cyber defenders can feel pretty beat up. Trust me on that one. And so I think the pandemic has really changed so much about the way we view privacy. I've already shared my vaccine card with my employer, and I'm sure many of you have either done that or self-attested to being vaccinated. I think everyone, all of us, are just willing to give up privacy just to feel safe again. Even if someone is hesitant to get the vaccine, they're more than willing to get it just to be able to travel again. I want to go to Hawaii, right? But do we trust companies that we're giving up our information to? Do you trust that the airlines that you gave that copy of your vaccine card to will take care of it? Are they sharing it with others? Do you even know, or are you anxious to travel so you really don't care? That's me. What if the airline gets compromised and your information is stolen? As corporations, we all need to ensure that the privacy of our employees and customers is kept safe and secure. And then don't even get me started about Shrems too. It's also something we're thinking about. How do we keep data in the geography of the customer? Many companies don't have their headquarters in the EU, but they're trying to figure out how do we keep specific types of data in the EU. So right now they're looking at support data and support engineers. Those also have to stay in the geography. This won't just affect the EU in the long term. All countries and all customers will demand that their data stays in the geo. We need to keep this in mind as we're designing new services, as well as updating old ones. Kathi, do you have some thoughts here?
I sure do. We are feeling pretty beat up.
Yeah.
And it goes across the board, talking about privacy and the things that you brought up, definitely from a personal perspective and information that's being stored about each of us with our employers. But also something that Jeannette hit on, and I think you hit on as well, Angie, was the vulnerabilities that are out there. and the amount that are unpatched. So I know one of the things from a working from home perspective that we talk about, get on a good VPN, one that you trust, one that you know is actually patching the vulnerabilities that are out there, right? So a VPN is only as good as those that are patching them and the ones that you're able to access. So vulnerabilities, the number of vulnerabilities right now is just staggering. It's amazing to think about how many vulnerabilities are out there, and it's almost nearly impossible to keep up with all the patching. So there's one vendor that has patches, then there's the VPN vendors that have patches, and there's all kinds of things. And that's why we rely on our IT and our InfoSec organizations within our companies to make sure that we're safe. But a lot of our customers may not have those types of organizations that keep on top of it as well as we do. So we also have to be evangelists to our customers as well. Remember, these are the things that you also need to do in order to keep yourself and all of your employees safe. As we look at the threat landscape. Another thing to be considering now that we're all working from home and we're all accessing things through the cloud, lots of stuff is in the cloud at this point, and misconfigured cloud containers are also becoming more and more common. You misconfigure a cloud container and you may end up with a denial of service vulnerability that will affect that container for you. There were some that were discovered earlier this year. And the first known malware targeting a Windows container was also discovered earlier this year by our researchers in Unit 42. So it's beginning, and it's something that we need to keep in mind, and we need to look at our cloud space as well as we go forward.
So you're saying we're going to continue to get beat up over and over again, continuously being pretty beat up. I did kind of want to jump in and mention too, because I think a few people have said this, we're thinking about being pretty beat up from our perspective as defenders, but I think the users too, right? I feel like, there's just this kind of like exhaustion of like, oh gosh, just another thing that I have to pay attention to with the COVID vaccine cards, for example, or, the phishing lures, like you were saying, Jeannette, talking about social engineering, they are getting a lot better, and people are, kind of tired, right? There's this kind of just exhaustion of like, all right, like enough already. Like I'm feeling this from all aspects, and I'm trying my best being at home and being secure. I'm trying to maintain, a work-life balance with my COVID vaccine and sharing that information and just trusting people that they're going to keep it safe. But then Kathi, to your point, there's just like new avenues of exploitation and new things that are kind of coming up and becoming even more and more vulnerable, that from the user perspective, it's easy to feel pretty beat up. And I think one of the things that we can do, a very easy thing that we can do as a defender from that perspective, or security operations, is to have empathy and not blame the victim, and understand that people are tired from being beat up. It's like, you know what? It's okay if you get hacked. I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's like these things happen. And I think that we can take them as learning experiences and say, you know what? I'm also beat up. You're pretty beat up. We're all in this together, right? And, we're going to try and solve this as best we can and move on stronger together. So didn't mean to interrupt and jump in, Kathi, but I thought that everyone was bringing up great points there.
That was fantastic, Selena. And that kind of takes us to one of the ways that we can help going forward, and the next song title. So we're moving on with some more Rolling Stone songs here. Our next song is Paint It Black. So despite it being 2021, the cybersecurity industry still struggles with lack of diversity, right? We've talked about this a number of times. I know we've talked about it on some other panels before. And that lack of diversity is not only in practice, but it's also in thought. So how is it easy, or how is it that we can look at diversity, those diversity concerns, and actually have an impact? What are some of the things that we can do to hire underrepresented talent? There are so many efforts worldwide working towards engaging with diverse groups and encouraging more interest in the STEM fields. It has to start at younger ages. These kids need to be interested in those STEM classes, and bringing our kids up so that they're interested in it, and they're interested in engineering, they're interested in computers, bringing it back to them to understand that everything you do, everything you touch is a computer. And that's a generation that I'm not familiar with. I didn't even have a computer until I was in college. So, and I was in my mid 20s before I got my first cell phone. So, kids are raised with this nowadays. So bringing that thought process back to them and getting them interested in it, and how cool it is to secure it and to learn more about it and to be part of that cybersecurity infrastructure. Palo Alto Networks has partnered with the Girl Scouts of the USA. I've talked about this a few times before. It's really a neat engagement that we've started. And what we've done is we've helped to develop 18 cybersecurity badges for the Girl Scouts. In addition to that, we offer cybersecurity workshops throughout the country. So we're getting ready to kick one off with the Girl Scouts of our nation's capital. So we're going to do a number of cybersecurity workshops with the girls in the nation's capital region and do that all virtually. So it's kind of cool that we can do all of this stuff virtually as well. So what else are you thinking about? What else can we do to help encourage diversity in our field, Selena? What do you think?
Well, first of all, I wish they had cybersecurity badges when I was small. And like selling those cookies for badges, that's adorable. But I think the diversity issue really helps kind of speak to all the things that we've been talking about, right? As the threat landscape is changing, you need more people from more diverse backgrounds to be able to think creatively, anticipate and defend against the changing threat landscape, right? The hackers are going to be coming from a wide variety of backgrounds and, have different experiences and thinking about things in different ways. And I think that, instilling, for example, in students that, this is what the world is and this is what can get you like something that you can be excited about and you can, grow up to be some of those like cyber defenders and protectors could help diversify the community, which is, what Kathi was talking about, which is great. Something that I think is really interesting too is Share the Mic in Cyber is a really great online sort of program that pairs cyber practitioners with people from underrepresented groups, largely Black cyber practitioners, but it's kind of expanded to national security and technology and stuff because the creator is Lauren, who is she is the manager of the cyber program at the Harvard Belfer Center. She has this amazing thought of, diversity is a national security issue. That you want to be able to build a strong foundation, to build strong and secure organizations and companies, to be able to best protect your customers. You really need a diverse workforce. You need a lot of people to come in and say, I'm thinking about this in a different way, or, bringing their ideas to the table. And I think that, when you have those people from different backgrounds and experiences and genders and, or sexual orientations, what have you, it really makes your company stronger and better. And, whether that's national security or cybersecurity, it's just more important. So I do strongly encourage people to get involved in the Share the Mic in Cyber program. I think I go off on Twitter. It's also on LinkedIn, but there's a lot of different ways that you can get involved there. But CTA, I think, Cyber Threat Alliance, we're all here because of them, right? Like this wonderful event is being thrown because of CTA. And one of the things that they do is really bring a lot of people together to the table to try and solve these hard problems. So Jeannette, did you want to chat a little bit about that and then some additional insight on this issue of diversity?
Sure, Selena, thank you. You brought us some really good points. And I do want to say, I just love the fact that the cybersecurity industry is working with the Girl Scouts. It just warms my heart. Selena, I think that's the beauty and the advantage of CTA is that we're a global group of diverse companies that are working together to try to solve the cybersecurity problem. We all bring something unique to the table. CTA is a nonprofit. It's a very independent organization. So all of our members cross the barrier of global diversity in companies. And we are really better together. So when we can get data and access to data and tactics and techniques that we didn't know about, it's going to benefit all of us. It's going to allow us to strengthen our security controls. It's going to allow us to better protect our customers. So it's all good. I would say that it really is easy to look at the industry and paint it black, right? It's just challenging times. And the last 2 years in particular have been notable. But I think not the least of the reasons is that despite all the efforts that we're doing, all the costs we are putting in to ensure we're better protecting the digital ecosystem, the problem's getting worse. And fighting cybercrime is really hard. So is just a lot harder to play defense than it is to play offense. So the cyber adversaries, they have it a lot easier than us and us cyber defenders for sure. There's concerning diversity, there's a term called likes like. And what that means is people and companies hire people just like them, right? People that think like them, people that often act like them, people that just are like them, right? And people fall into that trap of hiring people that they're comfortable with. And that's all fine and good, but I assert that we need to step outside of our comfort zone and have, that makes us hire like-minded people and focus on bringing that diversity to the table. It has to be a priority because we need new thoughts and practices to fight cybercrime. You know, we really have to be intentional about finding and hiring diverse candidates. We need people with diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences, and really just diverse thoughts to help challenge us to do better and be better. Because what we're doing, it's fine and dandy, but it's not working. The problem is getting worse. So we need people who can think outside the box, who can bring that fresh perspective to the table, and where we can have that light bulb moment and go, wow, I never thought of that. There's people out there. It's just going to take effort to train people in cybersecurity, but we can do it and we should do it. We are all better off in the long run when we can bring diverse candidates to the table. Angie, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. One of the ideas I've come across when we're talking about unconscious bias is to have someone from your team actually review resumes as they're coming in and select those good candidates. And this can help definitely with the unconscious bias. Ideally, have that person who left the position do the screening, and if not available, then have a neutral third party do it. Another great suggestion from one of my mentors, hire people who are totally opposite of you. Then and only then will you get the diverse candidates you're looking for. It's been helpful for me to do that. So I'm really great feedback. So one more final song title. Let's turn it over to Kathi.
All right. We're about to wrap this up. And after having such an awesome conversation, just want to get some last thoughts. The last Rolling Stone song we're going to talk about today is You Win Again. So is it all doom and gloom? I know we have seen some good times and we've seen some bad times, but can we, the cyber defenders, win again? What outlook do you have for the future? Selena, what are your thoughts?
So as a millennial, I think I'm supposed to be, sad and doomy and gloomy and think the world is going to end soon. So I have to go into my little emo pit of sadness. But I think ultimately for the cybersecurity community, I'm, inspired and I am optimistic because we have conversations like this. There are, people that are coming into the space from more diverse backgrounds, who have different, experiences and perspectives. I think that people are starting to realize, for example, the value of having an arts background or an English background, or, being able to think creatively and differently. I think too, as we had talked about earlier in the panel, is that there's an awareness of threats like there hasn't been before in general public consciousness. And I think that's great because we as cybersecurity practitioners have to be able to effectively communicate threats in order for people to be secure against them. The fact that my sister was talking to me about ransomware, I was like, what is going on? Like, this is a crazy time. What a time to be alive. But it's 2021, baby, we're breaking boundaries, new things are happening. And hopefully we can kind of take a lot of this like negative energy and some of the challenges that we have really experienced over the last few years and turn those challenges into opportunities. And again, kind of talking about that learning experience, right? Being able to take a lot of the hurdles that we've had to go through, all the people that have been in this industry for far longer than I have, taking their learnings and their expertise, packaging it in a way, communicating it in a way that can be shared towards a broader audience and hopefully broader adoption of a lot of, good and very, very useful cybersecurity best practices. So Jeannette, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this as well, and you can kind of take us home. So I'll leave it with you.
All right. Thank you, Selena. Well, I don't think it's all doom and gloom either, but I do think cybersecurity defenders can win. This industry is full of really smart people. It's just that we're fighting a hard problem. Overall, I think our industry needs to work meaningful, better together. I think we need to be better at sharing intelligence across the defenders. We need to join trusted networks like CTA, and we're going to all be better off. There really is strength in numbers. So good times, bad times. I know we've had our share. Okay, ladies, that's all for today. I want to thank you. I'm going to bring up a slide so people know how to get a hold of us. And there's our email address. So feel free to reach out if you want, but I'd like to thank the audience. But in particular, I'd like to thank Kathi, Angie, and Selena. You guys are great. Love working with you on this panel. It was a lot of fun. So
Thank you, Jeannette.
Great. Cheers.
thank you. Cheers.